Welcome, my friends, to the Sage of Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, Jordan Maxwell returns to the show. For more than 50 years, Jordan continues as a preeminent researcher and independent scholar in the field of occult and religious philosophy. He served for 3.5 years as the religion editor of Truth Seeker magazine, America's oldest free thought journal, which was established in 1873. His work exploring the hidden foundations of Western religions and secret societies has captivated the attention of critical thinkers from around the world. Jordan has conducted dozens of intensive seminars, hosted his own radio talk shows, appeared on more than 600 radio shows, and has written, produced, and appeared in numerous television shows and documentaries, all devoted to understanding ancient religions and their pervasive influence on the world today. His work on the subject of secret societies and their symbols has fascinated his worldwide audience for decades. Jordan's website is jordanmaxwellshow.com, and a highly recommended section of his website is Jordan's Research Society, where for a $30 lifetime subscription, you will have access to a plethora of Jordan's private research documents. For this discussion, Jordan will talk to us about how the world is not what we think it is, and how the occult and unseen forces operate in the shadows to rule humankind. And to kick our conversation off, Jordan explains how all the major religions talk about the off-world presence and their influence over humanity. Let's take a listen.
You know, all the religions of the world, the three major religions, but of course all ancient religions, from Hindus, to the Egyptians. My God, every ancient religion that's ever existed on the earth has always talked about the extraterrestrial presence in heavens and on earth. The ancients called them the gods, or the Elohim, or the spirits. Spielberg calls them the poltergeists, the angels, the demons. The the Muslims call them jinns, Jinns, jinns. That's why we call jinn a spirit. Yeah, you're going to go into the liquor store and buy some spirits. Well, jinn is, Arabic for a spirit. Well, there's no doubt that there is actually some kind of a spiritual or other world, off-world presence here on Earth. Now, people who have never had any experience with that, and an awful lot of people who have had experiences, but they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to think about it because it doesn't fit into their Mickey Mouse, placid little lifestyle. And so every now and then something strange will happen to them, but they don't think much of it and go on about life and act like nothing happened. Well, Winston Churchill said it best. He said, every now and then a human being will be hit and knocked down by some incredible experience in their life. But happily, they will get up and brush themselves off and go on about life and never think any more about it, because that's the way humans are. If they had any brains at all, they would wonder what in the hell just happened. Well, most people don't want to know. They want to act like nothing happened and just go on about life and drink your beer and watch the basketball game and everything's going to be fine. Well, in actual point of fact, nothing is fine and it's getting worse. So there's no doubt in my mind that there is some sort of an otherworld presence that is guiding and influencing the destiny of the whole actual human race. It's not just America, it's the entire world of mankind, is being directed through I don't know any other word to use, but occult means through mind control. I mean, and
Yep.
even the military, even the humans today are smart enough to pick up on otherworld knowledge and technology with their Project Butterfly and all of their different mind control operating out of the CIA and USIA and Russian mind control and all the rest of that stuff that the military are in. And of course, Steven Spielberg, as I've said many times, Steven Spielberg is many things, but stupid is not one of them. And he's making movies like a 13 one-hour series. I mean, can you imagine how much it must cost to finance Steven Spielberg for a movie like E.T. or something like that, Close Encounters? I mean, I'm just talking about a 2-hour movie. He made a 13-hour, I think it's 19 hours, television series. Think about financing Spielberg for 19 hours. And so somebody put up a lot of money to finance a television series for him, in which it took 19 hours to tell the story of and it was called Taken. And the television series Taken was based off of Dr. Carla Turner. Dr. Carla, Karla Turner, Turner. Dr. Carla Turner, extraordinarily brilliant, wonderful lady who died mysteriously after talking about the real story connected to the aliens dealing with the American military. How the U.S. military is in total operating with extraterrestrial off-world entities in her book. And she's written many books on the general subject. But that one particular book must have struck Steven Spielberg because he made a 19-hour television series off of her book called Taken. And
Yeah.
it's still out there on the web today. So, but the whole idea of the TV show Taken and the book was that there are alien life forms, EBEs we call them today, EBEs, extraterrestrial biological entities, actual living entities which are not from the Earth. They're from somewhere else and they have come here. And there's a lot we humans don't know about them, but the one thing we do know for sure is they're pretty goddamn smart. They're very technically superior to anything we have. What they can do is like the works of God to us. Well, I mean, we look like gods to people in Burma and in the jungles of Africa, with our televisions and ray guns and lasers and all the rest of the stuff we can do with helicopters, while these people in the jungles they're looking at us like gods. We're not the same color. We don't look the same. We can do strange things like television
Yeah, that's right.
and lasers and bombs and all kinds. And so all they know is we are gods. Well, that's what these actual alien life forms that are here. We call them, the ancient peoples of the world call them the gods. Well, what are you talking about, gods? Well, it's just a term. God, like I've said before, God is simply, in our language, dog spelled backwards. But what are you talking about, extraterrestrial presence here on the earth? Of that, there's no doubt in my mind. And a classic example, if you want to get the feeling for what I'm talking about, go back and get the movies. Maybe it's maybe on the web. I think there were 3 of them. I'm not sure, 2 or 3, that Spielberg made movies called Poltergeist. And those movies, if they don't scare the hell out of you, nothing's going to. I mean, I know the one thing about Spielberg is he's good at what he does. I mean, if he puts out a movie, if it's supposed to be scary, it will be, believe me. And then incidentally about Spielberg, another point about him I'd like to make is that he is extremely meticulous about details. I'm astounded at his brilliance of being able to capture minute, small, tiny little details that you would never, ever see. It's right there in the movie, but you didn't see it. Little details that tell me that he is well aware of what he's doing and what he's putting into movies. Strange little details that that normally would blow your mind if you go back and look at it for the first time and you say, "Oh wow, I never saw that," until somebody tells you it's there. And I told you about that. I don't know. Was it you that I told about the incident with Spielberg and one of the guys who was working with him on in the motor scooter incident?
No,
Uh,
I don't think that was me. No.
okay. Well, I met a guy who worked with Hollywood for many years, and he was working with Spielberg. This is an incredible story. I even have misgivings about telling it, but it's too late. I've already told it one time. I was going to tell it again. But he was telling me that he was working on a movie with Spielberg, and that Spielberg would roam around the lot, the motion picture lot, with a golf cart, and he said that I was working on the project. I had a motor scooter, motorbike kind of thing to roam around the lot too. And he said at lunchtime I took off on the was going to go somewhere on the lot, and as I was roaming around with this little motor scooter, I saw Spielberg in his golf cart. And he says, so I thought, yeah, I'd go over and I'd catch up with him and say hello and wave at him or something because I don't see him that much. And so he said, I kind of come up behind him and he heard my motor scooter, but he didn't turn around to see who it was, but he heard it. He heard me. And he turned around as if he was going to turn all the way around to see me, but I was behind him. So, it would have been too uncomfortable for him to turn all the way around to see me. But as he turned around, it told me that he heard me. And he said he looked up, he kind of looked up and shook his head as if to say yes. He was shaking his head yes. And all of a sudden, when he did that, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, popped up two men in black suits with black sunglasses and stopped me on my motor scooter.
Wow.
And they said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm just out on my scooter, and I saw, Stephen. And I was going to say hello." And they said, "Turn around and get out of here. Go back and do your job and get out of here." And he said, "I turned around because these two guys popped out of space. They just popped in
Hmm.
all of a sudden, two of them, and they were standing right in front of me like two any ordinary guys. And they said, 'Turn around and get out of here.'" I don't know what that tells you. But if you've got a mind, if you've got a good brain and you're thinking, that should tell you something. Spielberg looks up and says yes, and all of a sudden, two extraterrestrial entities, obviously they're not human, they just pop out of nowhere and stop you from getting near him. Well, I mean, that's a hell of a story.
Do you know
Uh,
this guy, Jordan?
yeah, I know him.
Okay. Okay.
But anyway, it's not important to who he is. I'm protecting him.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Uh,
I don't want you to go into who he is. I was just curious as to whether you knew him and you can
oh
validate
yeah,
the
no, no, no.
credibility of his story. That's all.
Yeah, no. I sat with him one evening. We were chit chatting, and we were comparing notes and comparing stories, and he told me one.
Yeah.
And incidentally, I had another guy. I've heard so many stories in my life that are absolutely mind-boggling stuff. I got a friend who was working for I don't know, the sheriff's department, police department. Forgot exactly what it was. He was working for the state in law enforcement. But he was telling me, and I don't know where it happened. This was a story quite a while back. But he said that he was standing by this big high rise on the street, and some guy was up on the roof working on this high rise, maybe 30 stories high, and fell off. And he said, I didn't know he fell off. I'm just standing there. And he said, when the guy hit the concrete right there near me, I happened to be facing where he hit. And he said, when he hit the concrete from falling 30 stories up, he bounced about 8 foot off the concrete. Once he hit it, he bounced up. And then when he was coming down after bouncing, he collapsed on his feet. I mean, he stood on his feet. And he took off his gloves and said damn it, something to that effect, damn it, and took off his gloves and then instantly collapsed into a pool of blood. But for a moment, he took off his gloves, realized what had happened, and said, damn it, and then completely collapsed into bones and blood. As you can imagine, you thought that's what would have happened immediately. No, it didn't happen immediately.
Yeah.
For a second or two, he was still together, knew what he had done, took off his gloves and said, I'll be damned, something like that, and then collapsed into a blood blister on the sidewalk. I mean, that's strange stuff.
Yeah, that's very strange.
Yeah, and so I mean, I got tons of stories like that I've heard from people over the years that are really, incredible stuff. But the reason I'm telling you these things is because I want the audience to understand that the whole world is not what you think it is. There is a presence of other world, off world. Occult is the word I use. Occult simply means hidden. So if you put your hand in your pocket, your hand is then hidden. So it's an occult hand. So many people think occult means devils and demons and all the evil. No, it just means hidden. And the reason why that is such a scary word is because so much of what is really scary in this world is hidden. So you don't see it. Why? It's because it's on a need-to-know basis. And you don't need to know. The powers that be in this world figure you're just a beer-drinking Joe Six-Pack with his wife and dim-witted children, so don't worry about it. Yeah, don't worry about none of this. The gods themselves and the dark forces of the world, the demonic entities of the world, they will take care of the world of mankind. They're doing their thing right in front of you.
Yep.
And they know you don't have brains enough to, and that's why I like what George Carlin says. I apply it to the occult world of spirits when he says, it's a big club and you ain't in it. And that's exactly what I feel about the spirit world. The demonic, the depravity of the spirit world that guides the destiny of people, wars and violence and bloodshed. And people are on drugs that see demons and see all kinds of apparitions. And then the church has been involved for thousands of years in seances and what is it when you conjure up demons, when you're trying to get demons out of people?
Like an exorcism?
Yeah, exorcism, right, exactly. And what was it, the movie? The movie was The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Right?
With Linda Blair.
Yeah, but exactly. Well, the guy who wrote the book was named William Blatterly. He was the author of the book. And I think he actually was a director or one of the associate directors on the movie. And after that movie came out, Merv Griffin, many years ago, used to have a sensational television talk show, absolutely sensational. He was a conversationalist, and he had on everybody. And he had on William Blatterly after The Exorcist came out. And Merv Griffin asked him, he says, where in the world did you get all of this information about the demonic and exorcism and devils and demons? Boy, that stuff was scary and believable. And he said, where did you get all of this information from? And he said, we learned a lot of this when I was in the CIA mind control department in the CIA, because in the CIA we deal with extraterrestrial and otherworld entities as a particular group that is assigned to that kind of technology and mind control, in which we know there are what you would call demonic demons and devils. The CIA has been involved with that kind of stuff for many, many years.
Yeah.
And so then I remember Merv Griffin saying, well, there's another guy that worked with you in that mind control demonic stuff that was working with you, and he's also very famous. You want to tell the world who that is? And he said, yeah, that was L. Ron Hubbard of Scientology. He worked with me in the mind control, demonic depravity in government that, he was there with me. So then later on, we learn about L. Ron Hubbard's connection with Aleister Crowley
Right.
in England, the master magician, and Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard, and their connection with a guy named Parsons,
Jack
Jack
Parsons.
L. Parsons,
Yeah.
right. Now, Jack L. Parsons became part of the triumvirate. Aleister Crowley, L. Ron Hubbard, and Jack Parsons. The three of them got together like the Three Stooges, Three Musketeers. The three of them got together, and they were all three interested in the dark side, the demonic, otherworld entities, spirits, demons. But their take on it was that these were, and I think they were right on this. Their take on it was that it's not what the churches would refer to as the demons and devils and all that kind of thing, but more in tune with the idea that there are extraterrestrial biological entities who are able to shape shift or present themselves in different ways. And so what the three guys wanted to do is they wanted to contact these entities. And so they developed all kinds of rituals, all kinds of sexual rituals, all kinds of strange rituals to contact these alien entities, obviously because they are superior, they have top knowledge and wisdom that we humans don't have. And so the three of them, Parsons, Aleister Crowley,
And Hubbard.
and Hubbard, right, all three of them were interested in communicating with the demons, communicating with the spirits. And so Jack L. Parsons he was also, by that time, Jack L. Parsons was well known as a rocketeer. He was developing, he's the one who developed the idea of solid fuels for rockets.
Right. He was with JPL.
Yeah, exactly. But JPL, which is Jet Propulsion Lab, no, no, and no. It's in Pasadena. Jack L. Parsons had his warehouse that he owned some land and had an old warehouse on it, and that's where he was conducting his experiments on rocket fuels, and then having his rituals where they bring young people out for sexual rituals, trying to communicate with the demons and devils and all kinds of spirits. And L. Ron Hubbard and a whole bunch of them. So a lot of interesting stuff was going on in Pasadena at this old warehouse that belonged to Jack L. Parsons. So they called it the Jack L. Parsons Lab, JPL. And so today it's Jet Propulsion Lab. And I said, no, go back and do your homework, son. It's Jack L. Parsons, and JPL is nothing more than the people who are now benefiting from the guys who are dealing with demons and devils and spirits and extraterrestrial biological entities. That's where JPL comes from. So when you see the strange things going on in the sky and strange stuff that JPL is into, you better go back and do your homework and find out what JPL is really all about. And I've got scientists who work out there who have told me where to go. There's places out there at JPL. If you go at night, you can't go in, but there are places very near, like a little bridge that's very close. And if you go out on the bridge at night, you can see and experience other world entities out there. And I've had people go out there, business people go out there. I told them about it, and they came back, and scared to death. They said, "There's no doubt about it. You stand out there, and you will see strange things. You will have these other world experiences, and it's real." So I know that Jet Propulsion Lab is involved with a lot of demonic stuff because they're interested in what's going on out there. Well, ask anybody, a Christian, Jew, or Islam, where do angels come from? If there are angels and demons and devils and whatever else you want to call them, where do they come from? They're out there. Well, that's what I just said. Go over to JPL and at night and look out there and watch what is really going on there. So that should tell you something about the U.S. government space program,
Right.
and what the real space program is really all about.
NASA is
Huh?
shrouded in the occult, Jordan, right?
Of course it is.
Yeah,
The
people don't
whole
realize that.
thing.
Yeah, right.
It
The whole
is
thing.
nothing but occultism,
Right.
dark ritual magic.
Or Masonic. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's really a hell of a story. There are books out there. Go on the web. There are books out there on the story of Jack L. Parsons. I mean, there's all kinds of great reference books. Documentaries have been made on television about it. They wanted to connect themselves to the other world entities to get their knowledge and wisdom and power. And that seems to be actually the bottom line of why these three guys were involved in this and why other people are involved in demonism and devil worship, etc., and child sacrifice. The bottom line seems to be power. To be able to have power to do things that other humans can't do. To give you supernatural, or what is actually referred to as preternatural abilities. Preternatural abilities means abilities that humans don't possess. You can do things and know things and be very powerful if you can do strange otherworld powers. Powerful people like the president will bring you on to pat you on the back and let you live like a king. Why? Because you can do strange things for him. You can do strange things for the government. You can educate and give knowledge to the astronauts and to the space program that normal humans don't have. And of course, Phil Corso and many other people like him have talked about that. As a matter of fact, there's been what was it? The project was called.
Disclosure?
Say it again.
Was it Disclosure?
Yeah, Disclosure Project.
Yeah.
And Disclosure Project that had, I don't know, at least a couple of hundred, top of the line, Class A, legitimate military people, high up in the military who have who actually know what they're talking about. And they were talking about in Washington, D.C., you could go on the video, go on the web and watch their testimonies about how all of them know that there are extraterrestrial presence here, that the U.S. government, along with all the other governments in the world probably, but especially the U.S. government, is heavily involved with extraterrestrial EBEs, extraterrestrial biological entities, actual creatures from another place in the universe, have either come here and or possibly have been here from day one, and you are the Johnny come lately intruder on the earth, because we know there's no doubt in anybody's mind now scientifically that people high intelligences have been on this earth for hundreds of millions of years. We find artifacts that are incredibly interesting artifacts. They're called out of place artifacts.
Mm-hmm.
Look it up on the web, and you will see something called out of place artifacts. And these are artifacts which are found deep in the earth, high up in the mountains where nobody's supposed to have been. Stuff that will blow your mind. Not from here. I mean, all kinds of strange stuff. But happily, it hasn't got anything, that this whole subject happily doesn't have anything to do with anything of any real importance, like Paris Hilton and basketball and drinking and your partying and all that silly nonsense that children and infantiles are entertained by. But people who have a brain, who are intelligent and mature enough to know the world is far stranger than you know. And you better go back and do some homework and find out what's really going on this earth and why so many people are dying with bloodshed and on drugs and the lunacy that's being caused all over the world. It's because we are being led by a higher power. And it has nothing to do with the nonsense and all the silly stuff that the churches are bouncing around on stages talking about the devil and demons. No, this is very serious, legitimate presence on the earth of higher intelligences. And I would go a step further and say it is just my opinion, but I am totally convinced for myself that the people who are leading the world, the top leaders of this world, are in fact themselves either in constant contact with extraterrestrial, or they themselves are extraterrestrial. And it's very difficult to figure out which, because, and the reason why I say that is because two reasons. One is because we know by demonstration that the people who are running this planet could not possibly care less about decency, honor, humanity, human blood, the life and destiny of children and families. They could not care less.
That's right.
They are hell-bent on blood, power, pornography, violence. The people who run this country, scare the hell out of the mafia. I mean, as bad off as organized crime? No. You want to talk about organized crime, you better go back and look at the U.S. government and the powers behind the U.S. government, the powers behind the empire. That's where the real power is. That's when, many years ago, back in 1959, when I came to California, I ended up in North Hollywood, not Hollywood, North Hollywood. And I got there was a big house in North Hollywood, and in the backyard they had about 9 or 10 little cottages. This was back in 1959. And they had little cottages in the backyard, and the family were renting out these little cottages. So I got one. But there was only one cottage in the middle that was an actual one bedroom. The rest of them are like little singles. This was back in '59, and the one bedroom was rented by an elderly lady. When I got there in '59, she was like 85, 86 years old. Her name was Gracie. And Gracie was famous around North Hollywood. She had a baby stroller, and every day she'd go out for a walk, like a walker, but she used the baby stroller, and she had a dog in it. And everybody in North Hollywood knew Gracie and her dog, and so I loved her. She was such a sweetheart, and she was always very kind. And because I was only 18, 19 years old, I would run errands for her. I'd go to the market for her and do all these things. One night she asked me, she said she wanted me to come over for dinner at her place. So I'm a 19-year-old kid, 1959. Gracie has invited me over for dinner. And when I went into her place, I was amazed. All over her front room, she had pictures of her. She was a beautiful dance hall girl in Chicago, a beautiful dancer or whatever. And I do mean beautiful. But she had pictures with every known criminal that you can imagine, with all the top names. She had big pictures of there with Al Capone sitting on his lap, legs diamond, and all these people, these
all the gangsters,
major criminals.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I was looking at it, and she was telling me about each one. Who is this? well, that's so and so, and he was killed doing this and that, and here's another guy, yeah, he spent 40 years in the prison. And she was telling me about all these different criminals and what they were doing and who they were and how they were connected, et cetera, et cetera. But she had some big pictures of her with Al Capone, and she was telling me, she said, one night I was in Chicago. I was with Capone when this picture was taken. I'm sitting on his lap, and she said, and I asked him in front of everybody, Al, how do you do it? How in the world do you get by being who you are, doing what you do? Everybody in Chicago, much less the U.S., everybody knows who you are and what you're doing. And yet you do what you want and you're making nothing but money and nobody bothers you. You just continue to do what you want to do. And everybody knows who you are. And he says, Gracie, she told me, she said, Gracie, I am merely a small cog in a big wheel in America. I have bosses over me. And the deal is very simple. I do jobs for the bosses. And for that, I get to ride a little free. I get to, as long as I stay within certain perimeters, I can do my own little thing and enjoy myself, having fun doing what I do, as long as I stay within perimeters. But the real powers are in Washington D.C. and in Chicago, representing Washington D.C. And that's where the real power. You don't have to worry about me. That's where the real power is. But as long as I'm serving them, doing what they want done, I do the dirty work for them. And I give them a piece of the action. I do the dirty work for them. We got an understanding. They leave me alone. I leave them alone. And then she went on telling me about all the other criminal, operations going on in New York and Denver and all over the world. She was very, very knowledgeable. And, I've thought to myself, there's so many people like that that I've come in contact with over the years that have, downloaded for me all kinds of knowledge about things that most people will never be privy to even know exist, much less the real story behind government, the
Yeah.
actual real story behind banks, what a bank really is, not what you thought it was. And what the police department really is, not what you thought it was. And so I've for the past, I would say for the past 50 years, I've been blessed, so to speak, to be in the company of truly astonishing, incredibly powerful, strange people who know things and can do things. And somehow or another, I ended up in them as almost as if, and there's no doubt in my mind about this, it's almost as if I was being led to meet these people. I met mafia dons, hitmen in the mob, politicians, astronauts, secret society operatives, all kinds of strange people on payrolls. I used to sit with an old man down by the Los Angeles airport back in the 60s. He was an old man then, and he was a publisher of occult books. And I would go down there, and there's a little dirty little office, a little dirty shop, and it was all overgrown with grass and overgrown. Nobody would even know there's anything happening in that old building. But yeah, there was an old man in there, and he was a publisher. And I would go down there, and he had some of the strangest, darkest, scariest books that he was publishing from Europe, from all around the world, republishing them. And I happened to be able to get in with him, and so I'd go down and sit with him. This was back in the mid '60s, and he would sit in his big easy chair. He had some people working for him, and he'd sit in his big easy chair and put a comforter over him and have his coffee. And he would sit there, and I would sit, and he had a little lamp. The light bulb was probably about a 30-watt bulb, and it would always bother me. Wasn't very bright. But he would sit there and he would tell me all kinds of strange stuff about the mafia, about Propaganda Due, P2 Lodge, about the Vatican, about the hit squads, the homosexual hit squads in Europe, all the strange rituals of the bankers, and all the deaths, and who's doing what and to who and how much it was such an incredible experience listening to this old man over the years talking about things which most people have never heard and would be absolutely blown away to hear the kind of stuff that I was hearing at 19 and 20 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I grew up with all of this kind of dark, occult, otherworld, strange people, strange knowledge. And then, of course, I've had my own stories. I've got about 36 now different stories, which I call my peak experiences, where I've had one-on-one experiences with the other world. And Christians would like to say, I'm dabbling with demons. No, the Apostle Paul, the 12 apostles, the great prophets in the Bible, all had otherworld godly experiences. Just because you are granted the ability to see things and to know things does not necessarily mean that you're a devil worshiping, demonic devil worshiper. No, it means that you have, for some reason, been able to be in the company and be places to know things and see things. And I believe it is for a reason. I don't think it happens to people by chance. I think it's for a reason that certain people are allowed to see and know things eventually for a reason that later in life they can help other people understand things which the human race is not aware of, and needs to be things need to be explained to young people why things happen. What are governments? What are banks? How does the mafia work? How does the government work? Why do you have this? Why are we going into space? All kinds of strange questions that people have that they will never be privy to know unless somebody who knows tells them. If you remember what Jesus says in the scriptures, it said, knock and it shall be open. Seek and you will find. But then added the third one, ask and it will be given. Meaning you're not going to get this kind of knowledge. I don't care how smart you think you are. You're not going to get this kind of dark, hidden, occult knowledge of things out of a book. There's a lot of good stuff out there in books, but you're not going to get it out of a book. You have to live it. You have to be there and see it happening in front of you to really grasp the seriousness of what's going on the earth today. And that's what I have tried to do by talking to people, and I have to couch my words. I have to watch what I say, because a lot of what I could say could get me killed and get you in trouble too. So I have to decide what I can say in public and what I can't say. But I've got stuff here that will turn your hair white if I were to tell you, but I'm not about to. I want to stay alive, and I know what I can and can't say. But I'm telling you, there's stuff going on right now with famous people that that are number one important people are involved, that they are involved in stuff that you have no idea in the world.
Are you talking, Jordan, primarily about politicians or beyond that?
No, beyond that.
Okay.
Beyond that. Movie stars,
Okay.
the industrialists, famous people in science. And you think, oh, that very famous scientist, yeah, well, you better find out who he really is.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's so much I would love to be able to talk about. There's so much that needs to be talked about, but I can't do it. I would be in fear of my life. But that's the kind of knowledge that can get you killed if you know something you're not supposed to know. I've had a lot of strange experiences in my 75 years. I've been all around the world. I was blessed in the king's chamber of the pyramid by a Kemite priest. I've been to Egypt 3 times and in the pyramids many times, but I was actually blessed by a Kemite priest laying in the king's sarcophagus in the Great Pyramid. I've been places people don't even know exist. And without beating a dead horse, I've talked to a lot of strange people that know stuff that will blow your mind. And it's always been my idea that drives me. I'm like on a mission. It drives me because I want the human race to at least taste a little bit of really dark knowledge. To wake up, the ball game is not important. What is important is who is running your country.
Yep.
And are they human? And is there a connection between our country and the Russians and the Chinese that you don't know about? Are there deals being cut to decide what country is going to die, what countries are going to be broken? So, those are the things I'm concerned about. All of the strange knowledge that we have never been privy to know. And I just feel that, the scripture says, for those who know better should say so. The idea being is if you know something that's very harmful and very frightening that's happening to people and you don't say anything, then you're equally as responsible. You could have said something to protect other people and make them aware, but you didn't. You kept your mouth shut and let them get in trouble. So I have a feeling of responsibility that for those who know more should say so. Well, I've tried to do that. I've tried to tactfully, as a gentleman, tactfully begin to imply in my presentations that there is a whole world that you are not aware of, that your life is being directed and destiny of your life is being directed by powers that you don't even begin to know exist. And where are you going in this life? Where is your country going? Where are you possibly going yourself when you die? And so, most people will tell you, I don't know anybody who doesn't realize this. You don't know where you came from. Where were you 100 years before you were born? Where are you now, in point of fact, in your mind and in your destiny? And when you die, where are you going? Have you ever thought about that? And and where are you going to be? Where is the world of mankind going to be 150,000 years from today? What is the earth going to look like? And like I said before, we know that there are artifacts, handmade articles, which we are finding buried way down in the earth in strata, which we know to be at least 2 to 3 billion years old. Strata in South Africa, where they're finding handmade artifacts in the earth strata, we know to be 2 to 3 billion years old. Nobody has offered an intelligent explanation for all of the undersea temples, incredibly enormous temples off the coast of Okinawa,
Yep.
off the coast of Cuba, and the famous one I always talk about is what really interests me is the pyramid.
Right, the sunken pyramid.
The sunken pyramid off the coast of 10 miles north of the island of Bimini in the Bahama Banks, and that crystal blue water that you can see in special times of day when you fly over. You can see right through to the bottom, and there's a pyramid sitting out there on the ocean floor. And the Oceanographic Institute and other agencies have gone out there and looked at it and photographed it. And I'm just amazed. Nobody seems to know about it. And again, what really ticks me off is the fact that it's not important. It's not important how a pyramid got on the ocean floor. It hasn't got anything to do with your little mundane, ignorant, dim-witted, backwards little lifestyle that you live. Has nothing to do with you. And I'm thinking, you know what? We are all human, and our brains are designed to not only take in knowledge, but to assimilate knowledge and bring it to wisdom and understanding. And so I'm just the one who's always wanted to pay back and give back to the world. And another thing that drives me is the fact that when I was a kid, I was very heavily involved in the dark side, seeking knowledge. I spent most of my time in libraries reading about ghosts and other world entities and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I love the book of Charles Fort. But I was always interested. I mean, I wanted to know. I didn't give a damn about your silly ass football games. The kids are all going out to the football. I don't care about your football. It's been going on for 5,000 years, and it hasn't helped the human race at all. Bouncing with a ball, football, tennis ball, bowling ball.
Baseball.
Yeah, I mean, you can go out about 30 of them. Yeah, ping pong, golf, a bowling ball, football, tennis. Give the kids a ball. Give the humans, because all humans are like children, infantile. They don't think very clearly. They don't think very much. Just give them a ball and they'll be happy. So go out there and have some beer and watch a ball game. And stay the hell out of the way of the masters who run this planet. And so I never have been a team player. I don't want to play ball. I want to know what these people are doing at 4 o'clock in the morning when the rest of us are sleeping, what they're really into, and who's really running this country, and what the real name of the tune is. I'm not going to serve on my knees anybody. I don't know who they are. I'm doing my own thinking, and that's dangerous today, to do your own thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're supposed to be in compliance.
Right.
And so give them plenty of beer. Make sure there's at least one liquor store on every corner in the country. So there's got to be plenty of liquor. Bread seems to go up in price over the years. Food and meat and good foods go up in price. But a liquor, it's always obtainable to everybody. I mean, you can be in the ghetto and bring home plenty of booze. They make sure plenty of liquor is available for all. Everybody can, get yourself loaded and drink. And, because you are angry and miserable and upset because you know there's something going on and you know that you don't know anything and you know there's no hope for you. So why don't you have a drink and watch a ball game and shut up? So I think that this is why there's so much frustration and anger among young people in the streets today. This is why so many kids drop out of school, and even the ones that stay in school, they stay in there only to get a work permit so that they can, fill out the work permit and go to work.
Yeah.
But they're all drinking. They're all into entertainment. Everybody's into the entertainment and television and movies. Why? Because they're frustrated. They don't know what's going on, and they don't want to know now. And they can't understand it because they've never applied their minds to understanding anything. And so that's what I see. And that's why that's my feeling. I want to entice people to look at the occult world. Look at the world that you've never been privy to know exists. What is going on out there in space that they're not telling you? The Knights Templars, the people who gave you the international banking cartels and who founded your religions, such as the Catholic Church and the Protestant churches and the synagogues and all of the religious institutions were founded and financed, organized, and directed and founded by secret societies, fraternal orders in the ancient world that you are not privy to know about. And you go to churches thinking you're talking to God. I mean, I talked to one Jewish guy in Israel, and I said, "What are you doing?" And in Israel, when you're at the wall praying, he said, I'm talking to the wall. That's all. It ain't going anywhere. God ain't helping nobody. We're just talking to the wall. Got nothing else to do on a Wednesday, so we go down and talk to the wall. And then, and so I'm fascinated when I hear kids saying, I'm bored. They want to go out and party and we're bored. You're bored because there's nothing in life of any value given to you. You don't know what's going on. The adults can't, your parents and the adults and teachers in school, the adults around you cannot help you.
No.
Why? Because they don't know anything. Their parents never told them anything. Why? Because their parents didn't know anything. And so when I get people, writing me all the time, emailing me saying, Jordan, I feel like I'm by myself. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Nobody cares to look at what's going on. And I always tell them the same thing. Look at, if the people around you wanted to know what was going on, the people in your neighborhood, in your city, they wanted to know, they would have already known. And they would be coming to you, trying to get you to listen, to wake up to what they know. But since nobody has ever come to you trying to wake you up and tell you anything, it's because they don't want to know.
Right.
They don't need to know. As long as they got food in their belly and they got some alcohol and their silly ass entertainment and the television, the sitcoms and all the other childish adolescent stuff that's given to humans to entertain them, they don't want to know. They're not interested. Well, if they don't want to know, then they don't know. And then when their children are born, the kids have no way of knowing what's going on. Why? Because the parents didn't know. And they didn't know because their grandparents didn't know. Well, hell, you can take this back 3,000 years. Humans have been reproducing on the earth, and collectively they got an IQ of 40. Nobody has done any research on anything. All they know how to do is go to war, smoke a cigarette, and sign up for the military,
Yep.
and go out and kill somebody or get your head cut off or something, and never question, what are you doing in Vietnam, for Christ's sake? What are you doing in this war? Who the hell are you to be killing somebody? And what is this all about? Well, we're protecting our country. What are you talking about protecting? These people never invaded your country, for God's sake. You're invading their country, dimwit. And what are you doing there? Well, we've been ordered to watch the poppy plants.
Yeah.
In the triangle, and the Chinese triangle, Chinese triad triangles. Now the military is there to protect the poppy plants.
Well, it's to protect the opium trade.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. It's just business, like the mob said.
Exactly.
Nothing personal here. Just business. Like, shut your mouth and take the money, or if you don't want to take the money, we'll kill you. So it's up to you.
Jordan, let me ask you this question, because you've been doing this for over 50 years now. Is the truth movement, in your opinion, spinning its wheels? Because it is, right?
Yep.
That's exactly the conclusion I've come to, because I watch what goes on. I participate in it. I do these shows. I do my own research. I take a look around me, and I think to myself, this is going nowhere fast. I hear all these people talking about an awakening, and people are becoming, more awake, and this. I'm not seeing it.
I totally agree with you. I always say that when people tell me about, people are waking up, I said, yeah, that's what you do in prison. When you're in for 30 years in a federal prison at Pelican Point, that's what you do. You wake up every morning. But so what? That and $2 will get you a cup of coffee. You're still in prison, airhead, and you're not going anywhere. So you can wake up all you want, but you're going nowhere. So it's about time you wake up. If you had a brain, which you don't, but if you did, you wouldn't be in Pelican Point. You wouldn't be in prison.
Yeah.
You would have woke up a long time ago to figure out how this world really works. So, and I always say, and I hear this all the time, you probably heard me say it before. People say, well, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And I say, yeah, it's a train coming, airhead. Yeah, yeah, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You better wake up and look at the world where it's going.
We are in trouble. And, I don't like to say those types of things because I want to be, and I like to believe I am, very
Positive.
optimistic, positive. And I
Yeah,
keep
sure.
going. And I know you keep going, Jordan, and you've been doing it for a lot longer than I have. I'm going to keep going and pushing the envelope, seeking truth, trying to get that truth communicated out. But I have to be dead honest with the audience. There are times when it's extremely, extremely frustrating. And it almost gets to the point of being demoralizing. And I was talking to somebody else who's in the alternative research movement, and they're a very good friend of mine. And I said to her that it gets to be very disappointing when I do shows like this, and it'll get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 views. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. And somebody else will put a video up of somebody skateboarding and crashes his nuts into a railing, and he gets 50 million views.
That's exactly right. What am I going to say? You're right. And that is very frustrating, but that's exactly right. But then again, I remember the Bible has Jesus saying, I cured 10 people of leprosy and only one came back to thank me. Well, that tells me that only about 1/10 of the people hearing you really care, and I'm thankful to hear you. The other 9/10 couldn't care less. They're too stupid out on beer and their bills and their home and all that stuff, and
And
so they just don't care. And
so is this more of a metaphysical type of experience for us then? I'm trying to figure out then, we're here, we're doing this. If it's not going to pan out at the end of the day, I hope it does. But in the event that not enough people wake up and we don't get critical mass, so in your view, what is this all about? I mean, is it metaphysical? Is it a spiritual development type of experience?
yes, I'll tell you what my take on it, and I'm not the world's foremost authority on anything. I'm just giving you my
Yeah.
my considered opinion after 75 years of this. I think what is happening is that good and evil are being presented on the earth. This is like a test here. This is like some kind of a test where good and evil are even and on the earth. And somebody, whoever has created us, obviously is a lot smarter than we are. If they created you, they are gods. Well, they may not be God, but they're about as close to God as you're going to get. Anybody that can put a human being together and have it reproduce itself. So whoever has created us, if there is a God, has put us and allowed us to be here to see which way are you going to go. Why? I don't know why, but maybe it has something to do with the reincarnation idea that you were given a world. One half of it is incredibly evil and fun and enjoyable. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, fast cars, rockets, all kinds of wonderful, strange, off-the-wall stuff that ends up you're in the devil, in the middle of a demonic depravity. Or let's see how these creatures, let's see which ones gravitate to the good and which ones gravitate to the spiritual bad. Let's just see. Put it out there and let each person decide what they want to do. And I think that's just one idea,
Yeah.
but it seems to be that somebody is watching us, and somebody is waiting to see which way are you going to go with this. Because here's the bad, but if you want the bad, there's a lot of good for you in the bad. You can make a lot of money, a lot of sex and drugs and money and power. And so come on in if you want a piece of the action. But it's like the mafia. Once you're in, son, The only way you're leaving is in a box.
Right, right,
And so, you wanted this, and how many things and movies have we seen, where this is the idea of the movie? You wanted to be a part of this, you want to be a part of that, well, you're a part of it.
right.
As a matter of fact, and you say, well, I don't want to be a part of it. Oh, no, that's not the way it works. You came in, we didn't ask you, you asked us, and you came in and you got a piece of the action. You got a piece of the money and the fun and the power and all of that. Well, there's a price to pay for it. No free lunches.
Yep.
So we gave you money, we gave you connections, we gave you power. Now we're asking something back from you, and you better provide. You better do what we ask. So I understand how all of this dark stuff works. I've been around. I know how it works. I've been all over the world. I've seen what's going on. But I know that today evil is far, far more powerful than good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's very clear. That's very, very clear.
No doubt about it.
And how that evil has an ability to manipulate the vast majority of the population and deceive them is mind-boggling to me, Jordan. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, me too.
And they play the same thing over and over again. It's like these events, like in Brussels, and then we had San Bernardino, we had France. It's the same template. It's played over and over again, and people continue to fall in place. They continue to believe the lies and the deception. And that's what becomes extremely disheartening, is the fact that they can do the same thing over and over and over again, and most people will not stop and say, hey, wait a minute.
No, you're right. You're right. Einstein said, you cannot fix a problem with the people who caused it.
Exactly. That's right.
So you're not going to take this problem to the government. It's the government that's doing it, airhead.
Yeah.
So if you can't fix a problem, if you take your car to a shop and the guy screws it up so bad you have to push the car home, well, you're not going to take it back to him to fix. If he could fix it, he would have fixed it to start with. So you can't fix something by the people who have caused the problem.
Yeah.
And the reason why nobody can seem to fix anything is because nobody knows what's going on. So you can't fix a problem if you can't, like I've heard many years ago, you can't be a tour guide to a place you've never been. So
right, it's true.
You can't help somebody, and you can't even help yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're on an airplane, they tell you, the stewardess will tell you, on every flight, they tell you, if we get in trouble, the mask will drop down, the oxygen mask will drop down. Put it on yourself first, not your child, not your wife or your husband. Put it on you first. Why? Because you can't help nobody if you're dead. So put it on you so that you're getting the oxygen. Now you can think on how to help other people. So my point is that the only way humans are going to get out of the mess they're in is to put your brain to work. Stop crawling on your knees to your masters and start thinking for yourself. And the biggest problem we have today is that people are asking all kinds of questions. But I used to be Steve Allen, the musician, comedian Steve Allen, was a very dear friend of mine. And we used to talk about this all the time. And he said one time, people are always asking questions, but very seldom do you ever hear anybody ask the right questions. You can sit and ask all kinds of questions, but unless you're asking the right questions, you ain't got it. You're never going to get to anything because you don't even know the right questions to ask. Let me give you an example. I have somebody that I know, and I've watched him do it over and over with me and with other people, that can tell me, and he's done that. He's told me 6 months to a year ahead of time, a prophecy about what is going to happen to me. but it's in minute detail. He tells me what color shirt I'm going to have on, what time of day to the minute, and I'm going to be in the car with these people. There's going to be a girl in the front seat, a guy, and I'm going to be in the back seat, etc. And she's going to say to me, and then I'm going to say to her, and we're going to be at the cross street, and tells me exactly. And he goes through all this ritual of giving me all these minute details. Then 1 year later, on that very day, at that very moment, that's exactly what happened. I'm in the car that he said I would be, wearing the color shirt he said I would be. And so I've had him do that with me, so I know that's possible. Now, when I tell people that, they always say to me they always ask me the wrong question. They say to me, well, how does he do that? I tell them, I don't give a damn how he does it. The question to ask is, what does that tell you about your life?
That's right.
What does that tell you about this life you're living? If somebody can see your life a year from now in minute detail, what does that tell you about your freedom? Who are you? What's really going on here? That somebody can tap into your future and see it in detail? What does that tell you about your life? Your life and your decisions, your children, and who you are, where you are, what planet are you? I don't think you know a damn thing about anything. Period. So unless you start waking up to the reality of the dark side, the strange stuff that's going on in the world, and begin to question, where are we in the stream of time? What is going on here? You know, it's just an incredible story about the ignorance, self-centered, egotistical, goofy mind of the human being, when actually the brain is an incredible computer and should be open to all kinds of interesting, fascinating knowledge and wisdom. But it seems like there's only a handful of people on the earth who give a damn.
And that concludes another Sage of Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the show notes below. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.